Hello, folks. Real pleasure to have Amit Zavery from Google Cloud today in this episode of Burning Platform. We're going to talk about a topic he's been very, very passionate and a pioneer on: citizen development, no code, low code development. Amit, thank you for joining me. Why don't you tell us about yourself? You had a great career in the industry. Brag about yourself for a couple of minutes.
No, thanks for having me, Vinnie. It's always great to talk to you. No, so Amit Zavery, I'm VP and General Manager for our business application platform at Google Cloud. I've been here for a couple of years now at Google, and I used to be previously at Oracle for 24 years. I ran all the platform and the middleware, and before that, I previously was building some of the applications at Oracle. So the thing I've been doing here over the last couple of years, one, Google Cloud, as you're probably seeing, is growing very, very fast. We have a large user community who build applications on our platform today. Typically, for the last few years ago, I mean, we were always been focused on making sure developers have a great experience and they can build applications very easily and quickly, but typically very focused around the software engineering and IT folks. Over the last few years since I've joined, one of the focus for us has been to how do we take the power of a platform and make it available to more people than just software engineers and IT staff. And that's really where this business application platform and the investments we're making in Google Cloud really is coming and paying dividends, right? We are building out no-code capabilities. We're making it easier for our customers to build those apps and then get the power of Google Cloud without having to learn all the intricacies and the details around it. So that's really the focus I've been having. And it's been great progress and exciting times, as you can imagine, from the product perspective in terms of the adoption and the value we're creating for our customers.
So, Amit, let's talk at a macro level. So, during the pandemic, we certainly saw on-premise applications come under a lot of stress, right? They couldn't scale, a lot of VPN provisioning issues, et cetera, et cetera. We also saw horizontal applications, the Oracles and the others, just weren't enough for people to survive. People needed vertical telemedicine, they needed distance learning, they needed e-commerce, and so on and so forth. So I've always been a package application guy, but I got the sense in the last 6 months, customers are finally saying, we gotta move much more into development, right? So are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, 100%. I think, as you point out, pandemic definitely changed how people started thinking about, and especially the customers started thinking about what it means to build applications, deliver those functionality very quickly, while you untap and unlock the data you already have in a lot of your systems, be ERP, CRM, on-prem, wherever it is. So we saw starting, we've been seeing a huge demand in general from the perspective of building workflows and automation across multiple applications and integrating them. And we used to provide, and we still provide, a very, very robust API management and integration platform. But what happened since last March is now more than just IT. A lot of business users and LOBs and analysts coming to us and saying, hey, you know what? I want to create this workflow. I want to automate this process. And they know a lot about what the business requirements are. And having to wait for IT or anybody else to build those things was getting too cumbersome. And the time to market became very important because everybody was becoming digital. You had to provide your mortgage lending online. You had to do telehealth online. All the things required a lot more ability to do these faster and by everybody, not just by the IT teams. And that's really where the whole equation changed, where you wanted to be in the cloud, you wanted to be browser-based, but you also wanted it simple and easy, but powerful enough to build those kind of workflows and business applications. And that's really where we saw a huge amount of up-ramp and adoption happening in this kind of requirements.
I saw a study which said voice interfaces really took off during the pandemic, which is another way of getting citizens involved in invoking enterprise functionality, right? Yes. You could say, hey, Google, take my timesheet, right? Yes. So that was another one. I saw a lot of citizen integration with complex enterprise. So the citizen development, not just development, it's coming through and manifesting itself in many more aspects, isn't it?
Yes. No, you're right. I think it's kind of, we have to figure out a right term because it's not development, as you point out. I mean, it's not, because people think about development and start thinking of engineering and software and all kind of stuff. Yeah. It's really automating your business process and making it digital, right? So it's digital transformation, no doubt, we've been talking about for many years. The reality of the situation now is that how do you take what you used to do on a regular basis, make it digital, make it available, and make it changeable? Because your world changes, your needs change, and all the platform and the capabilities we provide you don't have to learn all that kind of stuff. You should be able to abstract it out enough as a user so that I can make changes without having to kind of learn all these things. And the agility becomes very critical. And the use cases are like, I mean, we never even thought about some of the use cases we're seeing nowadays, because people are being very innovative and you opening it up to so many more people. I mean, if you do some of the studies, like there are going to be 4x or 5x more citizen developers, if you would call them, than IT staff ever will be. Right? And they all want to get access to this powerful technologies, but without the need and the time ability to kind of keep up with all this stuff. So that's really the motion now.
And in small businesses, right? Restaurants have needed to become technology savvy. Small retailers have had to become technology savvy. So that's another form of not very professional developers learning how to become more digital. So
I'll give you an example. We have healthcare users, right? I mean, because of the situation in March, April, May timeframe, when the hospital beds were being kind of counted, people wanted to know how much capacity they have. And they're all like nurses and healthcare workers, the frontline workers, who could not build it. They didn't have any applications to kind of track all this information, right? And this information was not very easily available. So they started building very simple, quick applications, and eventually get very sophisticated because you started counting like churn rate, how many people are there, what kind of approvals you need, putting that into the back-end system. So it started with a very simple idea that I just want to count the number of hospital beds. And you can build that, of course, with the products we provide today. And then they started out all of this complexity, and we could still scale and provide all those kind of things, which was very, very interesting to see.
Yeah. The enterprise world, though, still seems a little bit suspicious, right?
Sure.
If you're a fan, you'll call it citizen, but if you're not a fan, you'll say it's shadow IT, right? And, historically, every time we've given users some macros in Excel, my God, it's out of control. I was at Pricewaterhouse when we launched Lotus Notes. Every office had a menu from their favorite restaurant. It just got out of control very quickly.
Yeah.
How do we manage that now? How do we put guardrails against some of that happening with citizen development now?
No, I think it's a very important question. Enterprises have a very unique needs, and they have a very different historical way of building things and delivering things and kind of managing. There's a lot of needs for managing all these things and governing around it. So I think the way to look at it is, one, you need to move from low code to no code. And I think there's a big difference, and I think sometimes the industry kind of conflates the two. The idea behind no code is literally what it stands for, is really you don't have to write a single line of code. Versus low code is, as you said, macros or 4GL, all the languages which are kind of abstracted, but you still need to be semi-professional developer. It eases your development, but doesn't completely solve the problem for anybody who's not professional developer today. So what we've done with the platform is, one, you to provide a no-code kind of thing, and powerful enough that you can make all the use cases you're thinking about. Second, with this one, to prevent this shadow IT or this issue around IT being worried about what happens to these things you offer inside an enterprise, you have to still put a lot of guardrails like governance, security, compliance. So the platform needs and the underlying things you do in an enterprise side doesn't go away irrespective of no code or anything else you provide. If you think of no code as something which is going to be built and thrown away and nobody cares about it, it's a very different world. Enterprise is not like that. This is not for prototyping and kind of playing around, and then you say, you know what, I like this idea, let me show you what I did, and then give it to IT. This is really applications you can deploy and run and operate your business with. And if that's the case, anybody who's providing this kind of platform has to make sure there is compliance, there is governance, there is ability for IT to know, or anybody to know who's using what. what kind of security privileges which you have in your application, how does it translate back into your other applications you're building. It should not be indifferent. If you have no access to that data, just because you're building a no-code app shouldn't mean your data gets access to it. So you have to make sure all those guardrails you use in your enterprise apps, same kind of philosophy still applies. It's just that make it easy for you to build and deliver. And then IT can be part of it. They can build sample apps. They can provide a lot of reusable components. They can provide guidance. They can host it. They can run it. We provide this as a SaaS service, so IT doesn't have to deal with a lot of things. But IT has the ability to kind of govern it. So they can figure out who gets access, what kind of administrative access who has, how they revoke access, all the kind of all the things you would do in an enterprise system is still available to this no-code platform, but it's easier for them to kind of start now making sure it's manageable and addressable, right? So that's really the key way of giving IT and enterprise comfort as well as the value they deserve.
So Amit, I'm going to have you step in my shoes, become an industry analyst for a minute. So I see kind of a bifurcated industry. I see Salesforce has really pushed its trailblazers, the citizen development very hard, and they've got some very passionate customers as a result. The SAPs, the Oracles, the IBMs are still very, very IT-centric. Are you seeing the world similarly, or are you seeing everybody kind of move away from the IT-centric world?
No, I mean, your job is a tough job, so I will not even pretend to be an IT or industry analyst. But let me at least tell you how I see this, right? There are three different segments. There is, as you said, Salesforce of the world, right? They're providing ability to extend and evolve on their platform other applications, but it's completely tied to Salesforce.com. It is, you have to understand Salesforce.com schema, you have to understand the elements of it, and you use that experience, and you're evolving it. So it's a great platform. Their Trailblazer and what they do with Force and everything is a great platform for people who are Salesforce.com users. It's a perfect thing for them if they really want to remain in that world. And it doesn't really give you the ability to do other things outside that realm, which is, again, different use case that makes sense for them in that particular use case. Oracles, IBMs, and SAPs of the world are still, and again, nothing wrong with it, but they're still in their on-premise application world mostly. There might be some Oracle, of course, has evolved and bring a lot of SaaS-based apps, but they're very fragmented by different pieces. Each module is by itself, and the low-code or no-code elements they provide is not really it's not really for building applications. It's really connecting systems together in many cases, right? They don't really provide you the ability to build from scratch an application. In the app's perspective, you can buy tools, middleware tools, or whatever it is, but that kind of gets disconnected from the rest of the environment as well. And the third part, which is becoming now probably more relevant, is the hyperscaler and the cloud vendors providing a no-code as part of the platform, and more integrated into security, more integrated into management of it, more integrated into the data store. And extracting out all those elements, but making it available to you as a full-blown platform which you can deliver. You can go and build any kind of application, and that I think is going to be probably a more and more relevant scenario for people who are not just tied to one particular application, a backend application.
And I would think, I would think even for the application vendors, they'll have to take a hard look and say, why are we investing so much in platform, right? Why don't we use Google's machine learning and a whole bunch of other capabilities that your platform is providing? Well, you put yourself in the top right of the Magic Quadrant already. You did a good job. So tell me something. With growing concerns about security, with the SolarWinds and so on, I've heard some concerns that, hey, maybe the citizen development we need to be a little bit more wary. What would you tell them?
No, I think there should not be any difference between citizen development or enterprise applications in terms of security, in terms of what management can do on it, what kind of compliance, governance. So if you pick as an enterprise a tool or a platform or a provider in this area, you have to make sure you're thinking of it end to end. Not thinking of this is like a side thing you can just go buy or use, and then have a very different way of running it versus rest of your enterprise systems, right? All I think that the enterprise should be thinking about is how do I make it easy for people to use it inside my company, but you cannot discount that all the security elements to it, right? So that's why the way we've been thinking about it, the way we build AppSheet and what we're providing from a business application platform and the AI, ML, all the related elements, that it is still the underlying technology is all the same. We are using the same security elements. We're using the same kind of philosophy of making sure data is secured and not hackable, all that kind of stuff. While I make it easier for you to kind of use that as part of your development cycle, right? And I think that's the way to watch out for. I don't think citizen development or no code should remove any of those restrictions of security and compliance needs. But otherwise, you will fail, and then people will talk about why this doesn't make sense.
That's a great answer. What else? I mean, you're very passionate about this. So what else would you tell the world about no code and citizen development?
Yeah, I think the way I see it over the next few years, if you look at no code, maybe 3 years ago, you really could not build much with it. I mean, it was very simple use cases. For the last few years, specifically with the power of AI ML, building this on top of an existing platform like GCP and adding the security stuff, suddenly we have unlocked many other use cases we could have not done before. We made also, how do we innovate in terms of application development itself? So when I'm a developer, or when I'm a citizen developer, or I'm somebody trying to build an app, I give you a lot of help to get this thing done very quickly. And that has opened up a lot more use cases than we were able to do before. And over the next few years, I would say that this capabilities will keep on getting better and better. We are able to, as I said, telehealth, you talk about retail, you talk about financial services, mortgage lending, all those things are very complex use cases now. And that has been done on this kind of platform now. So I see over the next few years, this is going to be a huge adoption cycle, and there'll be a lot of interest as long as we keep the guardrails around it.
Does that mean more talent pools around the world? Have you looked at the global implications of what
I think the customers we're talking to nowadays and the users I interact with on the Google Cloud, we have two types of, as I said, we have the very technical, sophisticated developer community. And now suddenly the volume of users who are not the software engineers of the world, who are also using the same powerful platform, but doing it much more easily, right? And now you bring in the productivity tools like the Workspace, the G Suite, email, Google Meet, add things around docs and sheets and all that stuff. I can build and stitch them together as a workflow. I can do approvals on it. I can now put application on sheets very quickly and build and do procurement, whatever, travel approvals. So a lot of those use cases are now getting unlocked, right? So I think that's really the volume in terms of people who otherwise would be a user, not kind of involved with it, but more like an end user, suddenly are participating in the creation of that workflows, which is, I think, suddenly unlocking a lot more ideas. And it's not like it's taking away jobs from people who are doing the other stuff. It's just now suddenly adding more and more capabilities than you would otherwise be able to. So this is a great opportunity suddenly to open up the power of technology to a lot more people than we otherwise would be. And it's not ideal. I mean, I'm not trying to talk about like, hey, let's just do, everybody should become a citizen developer. But if you have interest in doing this, you can have a part to play, which is, I think, a great option.
You're pointing to something. I wrote a book about automation a few years ago, and I found a lot of super workers, right? So UPS, with all the telematics,
yes,
some UPS drivers have driven 1 million miles without an accident. Couldn't do it without technology, right? So to your point, we'll make ordinary workers, not ordinary, they're specialists in certain areas, but we're making them much more technologically savvy, which is only good for most enterprises. So
no, I think we are just exploring this thing. If you think about it, if you now add Androids, you add all the things you do in Chrome, I mean, you add all these elements and you bring all these things together in a powerful way. This is still scratching the surface, and as you were quite way ahead of it when you wrote this book. So I'm glad that some of the things are coming together now.
I didn't expect the digital world to evolve so quickly, frankly. It was there was more automation happening in blue collar farming areas like that, right? Physical activities, but this is great to see. Making corporate business much more productive.
Yep.
Any final thoughts?
No, I think this is, as I said, this pandemic has taught us new things. We have been able to help many of our customers, which is our team is very proud of what we've been able to help them sustain the business and grow while they're facing such a challenging time. So it feels good to be part of a community and an environment where we can build interesting stuff and make a difference. And I think the enterprise world is, as you said earlier, is very different. And I think now Google Cloud, we're able to kind of deliver to those needs now. So it feels good.
Rob Enslin, your executive, I interviewed him about 7 months ago, and he was telling me about use cases in different industries. Quite impressive what you guys have done in the last couple of years. So great to have you here. Look forward to continued conversations.
Thanks, Vinnie. Thanks for having me. Good luck with everything.
Thank you.